Welcome back, students, to another lesson from your favorite English teacher. Today's lesson will be on drawing conclusions and making inferences. And your objectives upon completing this lesson will be for you to be able to use evidence and your own experience to make inferences within the text and use evidence within the text itself to draw conclusions. First off, we need to understand what it means to make an inference. You can use the formula on your screen right now to see the process that we will follow to make inferences. First, you use what the book says. We call this evidence. You add that to what you already know. We call that background knowledge. And combining those two elements, you'll get an inference.
Now, let's try this with the picture on your screen. How does this man feel? You can use the evidence, that is what you see on the screen in the picture. You can see the tight grip of both hands on the pencil. You can see the broken pencil. You can apply that together with your own background knowledge. Perhaps you remember a time when you were so angry that you damaged or broke something. Putting those two elements together, you can infer this man feels anger. Let's try this with a text example now. On your screen, you can see an example of a small passage. The passage says, "He held the paper with red marks all over it as he walked out of the room with his head down." What does the text say? What evidence do we have here for how this person might be feeling? Well, it says he had red marks all over his paper. It also says he walked out of the room with his head down. Put that together with what we already know. We probably already know that either we have held our head low when we felt sadness or disappointment, or we've seen others do that. We probably also know that red marks on a paper indicates mistakes that have been corrected or marked. From those two pieces of those elements, the evidence and our background knowledge, we can infer that this person in the passage is feeling disappointment over paper that they just received from their teacher. Let's try another example. The passage says, "A mom put a sign on her teenage son's door. Enter at your own risk. An unknown bacteria is said to be growing in this room." So what does the text say? That is the evidence. Text says the mom put a sign on her teenage son's door. Text also says that the sign says to enter at your own risk because there's some strange bacteria growing in the room. Put this together with what we already know as background knowledge. We probably already know that moms are famous for getting onto their children about cleaning their room. We also probably know that people oftentimes use comments like an unknown bacteria is growing or some strange smell from the room when they think the room is a complete disaster. So applying these two elements, we can infer that the mom is not happy with the state of her son's room. Now we'll take a look at how we can draw a conclusion. The formula is on your screen. This is very similar to making inferences, except we don't use our own background knowledge to form these conclusions. We are only using evidence from the passage. Because we're only using evidence, it does take multiple pieces of evidence to form those conclusions. That's why the formula shows you that you will add evidence to equal that conclusion. You see a picture before you on the screen. Do you know what this object is? If you know what it is, you've probably seen one in use before. That is, you have background knowledge. That would be an inference. But If we're drawing conclusions, we are not using background knowledge. We are only using evidence to draw conclusions. And there really isn't enough evidence here in this picture to show you what this object is without background knowledge. Now take a look at this picture. We have some additional evidence. Now we may have enough evidence to draw a conclusion. We can now see the object that we saw before, but we also have an apple that looks like it has been cut into several different wedges, along with the core being cut out. The core and the wedges seem to match the sections in the object that we saw before. So now we can draw a conclusion that this object is a tool used for coring and cutting apples. Now, let's read a passage and see what conclusions we can draw about the effects of not getting enough sleep. The passage says, if your body does not get enough sleep, you may experience problems that you weren't aware of. For example, headaches are common among people who do not get enough sleep. Also, a lack of sleep can cause a higher risk of strokes, and lead to obesity and possibly memory loss. So if we look at this passage, we can see a couple of pieces of evidence that can help us with this question of what happens if we don't get enough sleep. First off, the opening sentence tells you that if you do not get enough sleep, you may experience problems. Then it gives you some examples of what some of these problems might be. You're at a higher risk of strokes, could lead to obesity, and possibly memory loss. From this, we can determine that not getting enough sleep can be harmful to your health. So now you know how to make inferences and draw conclusions. As you read going forward, try these new skills out and see all the new information you can discover from making inferences and drawing conclusions. Don't forget to like and subscribe.